Hello and welcome to this Astranti video on how to ace your case study exams. So, as I'm sure you're all aware, we've got the case study exam period coming up. I know, scary, but it doesn't have to be. As an FLP student myself, and as someone who's sat a lot of exams over the course of his life, I thought I would come here and share some tips and tricks for you about the best way to prepare for your exams so you can absolutely smash them. We'll start off with some more kind of general revision-y tips and then head into some more detailed case study specific ones. Okay, so tip number one is to revise smart. Now, I know that everyone's got their own different styles of revision, their own way they like to do things, whether it's flashcards, whether it's mind maps, whether you're someone who just likes getting repeatedly tested on stuff by somebody else. But whilst we all revise and make our resources differently, one thing I will say is when it comes to structure of revision, we're all actually fairly similar in what we need. And what we need is things to feel manageable and for us to have a system where we're focused. And that's where the Pomodoro method comes in. The Pomodoro method is something that I've used for lots of my exams, and it essentially boils down to 25 minutes of intense focused study time and then 5 minutes where you let your brain have a rest afterwards before doing it again, so half-hour chunks in total. Now, after you've done 4 of these Pomodoros, well, you can look up why they're called Pomodoros yourself online, but after you've done 4 Pomodoros, then you have a longer break of around 20 to 30 minutes, where you can properly switch off and separate yourself from work. I like to think of it as kind of like high-intensity training, or like sets in the gym. Or any other kind of form of intense short exercise. Normally, you're not doing maximum capacity for the whole time. You tend to work really hard for small chunks and then give yourself a nice small break in between. And this is just the same thing. The brain is fundamentally just a muscle, and so knowing how to get the most out of it can involve working hard but also giving it rest. As an extra tip with the Pomodoro method, I would personally recommend not going on your phone during your 5-minute breaks. I know it's tempting, but try your best to avoid it. A recent study from the University of California found that after we go on our phones, it can take us as many as 23 minutes to refocus on the task at hand. That's not good for your Pomodoros, let me tell you that. So try and get your phone out of the room, and then maybe in your half-hour break you treat yourself to some phone time and let yourself properly relax and unwind. And I think during the 5-minute breaks, you want to get up, you want to move, you want to keep your body engaged and excited as well, so that you're not just getting fatigued sat at the desk. So get up, make yourself a cup of tea, get yourself a snack, whatever you need to do, use those 5 minutes to do something that isn't work but isn't going on your phone. Okay, so tip number 2 is to know the case study inside out. Now, the simple fact of the matter is there is not enough time in this exam to learn the case study, to go over the case study, and to write down all your answers and make sure you've done them in as full detail as you need to. The solution to this is before you go into the case study, make sure that you've read the pre-scene and you know it like the back of your hand. This fundamentally will let you go into the exam full of confidence, knowing that you've got a good idea of what's going to get thrown at you, and it's a really nice advantage of getting the pre-scene versus other types of exam. I've always been a big believer in the fact that exams don't need to feel like this horrible, stressful thing that kind of pop culture and society makes us think they are. Actually, they can be a really good opportunity if you've done the work to show off and to really make yourself feel confident in your intelligence and your skill. I've found personally, I know this might sound hard to believe, but I promise you I've done exams when I've not done much work and exams where I have done a lot of work, and if you opt for the latter, then you tend to get into them and they actually become quite enjoyable. It's kind of an exercise in, like I say, showing off as opposed to something to be feared. Well, that's all well and good, but how do we get to know the pre-scene inside out like I'm suggesting? Well, step number 1 is to analyse the pre-scene. I don't mind how you do it, whether it's on the computer or whether it's in a kind of hard copy, but I want you to go over the pre-scene with a highlighter, with a pen if you're doing it on paper, or highlighting it or putting text in on a document, and I want you to annotate all the key things in there that pop out to you. We're talking operational structure, organisational issues, we're talking financial information, anything that pops out to you whilst you go through it. And then what I want you to do is to make kind of whichever way you like to learn, make flashcards, make a mind map, anything to get that information into your head. What I like to do personally is go through, highlight. I like to do it in a hard copy. I like to print it out and do all this stuff physically there because that really helps me. And after I've done that, I condense all this information into a single page of A4 paper, which I call my master notes. And this is what I then go back to try and revise and to kind of try and memorize in some ways. The trick is, do whatever feels right for you, but do something to make sure you memorize all this good analysis that you've done. Okay, so great, you've done the analysis, what's next? Well, now you want to identify trends or running themes, anything that seems to come up over and over again in the pre-CIM. Now, this could be things like key financial information that keeps popping up. It could be things like the ethos of the company, the history of the company. It could be operational problems that kind of keep getting mentioned. And the reason I want you to pick out these key themes and to think about them is because these are the things that are most likely to come up as questions. If they're getting repeated over and over again in the pre-CIM, it's likely there's going to be a question on them. And again, going in with a good idea of what the questions might be is really just going to help build your confidence, and confidence is absolutely key. Just as a quick plug here, a really good way to get all this work done quite efficiently is to let somebody else do it for you. So here at Stranti, we make our kind of industry pack, which comes as part of our case study course. Industry pack contains things like industry analysis, industry examples. The case study course also gives you a top 10 issues most likely to come up in the exam. All stuff that's really useful and that you can do yourself for sure, but it can really give you more time to focus on even more important things if you head on over to Stranti and check out our course offering. Okay, so finally, tip number 3 is to make sure that you revise and you think about exam technique. So you can know all of this stuff. You can have it inside out, you can know the case study really well, you can know the theory perfectly, but if you go into the exam and you can't get it written down in the time you need to get it written down, unfortunately, none of it really matters. And so what's the key way to revise technique? Well, it's to do practice papers and to do mocks. Mock exams can give a little bit more of a kind of personalized feel. So you can do a mock, you can get it marked by someone, and then you can really see what you need to focus on, and it's much more like an actual exam. This is also part of our case study course. So yeah, check them out on Stranti as well. And obviously you get the feedback here from a kind of experienced tutor who will then say, what you've done well and what you can improve on. If you are going to just mark your own work and use the past exam papers, I would recommend being quite strict, quite stern with yourself whilst you're marking. Because if you can impress yourself, your own worst critic, then you're going to do even better when it gets to the exam. You're going to be flying through it. One more key thing I would say about all of this is do it timed. Absolutely do your mocks, do your past papers timed. This has 2 benefits, one of which is that you kind of go into the exam knowing that your time management is down to a T. So you know that you can do what you need to do in the time. Perfect. The other really important thing is it kind of makes the exam feel less like a kind of big event and much more just like part of your daily routine. If you've done 6 timed assessments, 6 timed mocks, then you've done it all before and you don't need to worry about whether you're going to do it in time. You just kind of go into autopilot in the exam. So again, it can help build confidence, and I think, as I've said before, that is key. So I hope these tips have helped. What I want most of all to say is good luck. I want you to go into the exam confident, and I want you to go into it knowing that you've put in all the work and now it's your time to show off. And the best way to do that is to follow tips like these and also make sure you do your revision. And yeah, head on over to Stranti.com to check out our case study course offering. And finally, if you have any questions, drop them down in the comments. I'll try and answer them as soon as I can.